Voilà.
In the world of League of Legends esports is casual fans don't look at individual teams and judge them based on their accomplishments, but rather they judge them based on their region. This might be most prevalent with wildcard teams. In League of Legends, there's a distinct...
Tu veux avoir le background avant? Alors, le background, c'est... Ah oui, c'est vrai que t'étais pas là sur la scène. En gros, JP99 fait certainement les meilleures vidéos à propos de l'histoire de League of Legends. C'est vraiment trop bien. Et on s'en regarde une par jour, enfin par stream en tout cas. Et là, celle-ci, elle parle de la Corée. On a fait les États-Unis avec TSM il y a 2 jours. On a fait l'Europe avec M5 c'est hier. Et du coup, là, on va aller en Corée. Parce qu'il faut parler un peu de la Corée. Et on va aller parler de la team qui ne gagne pas. On va aller parler de cette team légendaire, de la team de Noix. Cette épopée incroyable qui est KT Rolster. Les grands adversaires de T1, la Telecom War, puisque pour recentrer, il faut se rappeler que T1, SKT, T1, ça veut dire South Korea Telecom T1, et KT Rolster, c'est Korea Telecom. Et du coup, c'est en gros SFR contre Orange, globalement, mais en format coréen. Et là, on va aller parler, du coup, des underdogs.
Between the 5 main regions are the Power 5 who are best at the game competitively compared to all the other smaller regions scattered around the world who traditionally haven't been as good. These smaller regions are called wildcards and they're considered simply atrocious. If a wildcard is ever able to beat a Power 5 team at an international event, it's almost always viewed as that main region choking, never simply as the wildcard playing well themselves.
C'est un vrai point ça qui marque par contre. En général, les wildcards, quand elles gagnent, même quand elles jouent brillamment bien, on se dit, bon, bah, c'est la main région qui a de choc. La seule exception qui a été faite, c'est devenu une exception tellement majeure qu'on a fait on en a fait quasiment une ARF 1, 2, 3, une région majeure, c'est Flash Wolves. Flash Wolves qui a fait des dingueries, qui a été rempli de joueurs incroyables, et qui a rendu les VCS, je crois que c'est la VCS si je me plante pas, comme étant une région quasi majeure, en tout cas une très grande terre de League of Legends. Et c'est vrai qu'ils ont de très bons joueurs, mais la plupart du temps, si le Brésil ou je sais rien, ou la Turquie ou quoi perf, ça marche pas. Hello Carotte, comment ça va? Et on va estimer que c'est la main team qui a choke plus que l'autre équipe qui a bien joué, et c'est hyper toxique effectivement pour la scène. Juste regarder les gens bien jouer, c'est tout. Baroque qui a bien joué, c'est qui a choke. Oui, on peut le voir aussi comme ça, effectivement. Et c'est assez dommage. Rogue a très bien joué. Rogue a mieux joué, en tout cas. Et faut juste aller chercher qui joue mieux ce jour-là et pourquoi. Flash Rouge, qu'en 2017-18, ensuite Marines et FM ont pris le relais en tant que digne représentant de la carte sauvage. Je suis assez d'accord là-dessus. Yo, Blio, comment ça va? Ça fait plaisir de voir ton nom sur le chat. Welcome, installe-toi, mets-toi bien. On est tranquille ici. Et du coup, ouais, donc le point là qui était intéressant, c'est il y a toujours des joueurs intéressants, même parmi les wildcards, et des fois, il y a des équipes de joueurs intéressants. Flash Wolves est un très bon exemple de ça. Faut pas sous-estimer ces teams-là. C'est juste que le pool de joueurs compétents est moins nombreux. Mais il n'empêche que de Flash Wolves, il est ressorti énormément de choses. Depuis ça dégoûte pour les joueurs, tu peux faire tous les efforts du monde, les gens vont dire que t'as... Ouais, c'est vrai ça l'écho. La forme et toi, ouais, j'ai un peu de temps entre le boulot, donc j'en profite pour passer. Karsaria. Mais oui, c'est ça, Sofem, Karsaria, il y en avait d'autres en plus, je sais plus exactement le roster Flash, mais il y en avait d'autres. Hein. Et sinon, moi, ça va. J'ai du temps pendant le mercato, du coup, j'en profite. Et peut-être que je streamerai plus l'année prochaine, on verra ce qu'il en est. J'aime bien l'exercice. Et du coup, pour donner l'idée, Blio, on regarde JB99, chaîne YouTube que je te conseille, qui retrace des grands événements de League of Legends. Et là, on va parler de KT Rolster.
Possibly the best example of this is Albus Nox Luna, who put up an incredible performance at the 2016 World Championships. During the group stage, their group consisted of the #1 seed from Korea, favorited to win the tournament overall, the #1 seed from Europe, and the #2 seed from North America. They made it to Worlds on a wildcard spot, representing the Commonwealth of Independent States, a region of the world made up of republics.
Je dis ça maintenant bêtement, je remets des vidéos sur mon YouTube, c'est soit les parties analyse de game qu'on a fait jusque là, soit les reacts, donc n'hésitez pas à aller faire un tour si vous voulez, c'est intéressant, on est bien sur YouTube aussi.
Formerly belonging to the Soviet Union. Now, nobody could expect them to beat any of these teams even once, but they would manage to beat all of them.
Back goes in, but Kura snipes one and Miracle keeping alive again. Nexus open, Kira trying to take down Prey with the Nexus.
Albustox qui bat Off Tiger, je veux dire là on est vraiment dans un monde.
The hero of ANX, and it's not enough just yet. Rock still
Et là vous pourrez pas dire Rock ça choke, je veux dire, même quand il choke, normalement ils sont censés atomiser Albustox.
Oh my god, they did it!
ANX just took down the Rocks Tigers.
ANX would win 1 game against the European team, 2 games against the North American team, and even 1 game against the top-seeded Korean team to make it out of the group stage. At the time of recording this documentary, this remains the only instance of a wildcard team getting out of groups at a World Championship, yet in spite of this accomplishment, most casual fans out there simply saw this as an example of the real teams choking. For a large majority of viewers, they didn't see this as an example of the real teams.
I guess this is why you don't pick cocky incredibly hard to execute comp with no tank and... Ouais bah oui, bien sûr. Et Uni Empowered Mantra is you plus 40% when you're... Les mecs sont en train d'apprendre le jeu à des ouïes, à des... Ça me fume à chaque fois, ça. C'est-à-dire, tu peux avoir une take, t'es pas obligé d'être hautain avec ta take. En fait, c'est ça qui me détruit.
Choking. For a large majority of viewers, they didn't see this as Albus playing well. This was CLG, Rox, and G2 all playing badly. You certainly could put some well-deserved criticism on those teams, but it's still unfortunate how League of Legends is one of the few sports where even if an underdog wins, that can't ever make them good in the eyes of fans. The teams they played against were all just bad, because after all, you have to be pretty bad to lose to a wild card. This mindset seems to go the other way too. Not only are bad regions viewed as having nothing but bad teams, but good regions are viewed as having nothing but the best. The 2 best regions in the world, China and Korea, are seen as having the cream of the crop. Whoever wins championships of those regions and then goes on to
On ne traque pour s'embrouiller avec personne. Il a dit les 2 meilleures régions, Chine et Corée, et il a mis d'abord le drapeau coréen puis le drapeau chinois, comme ça équilibre, il s'embrouille avec personne. Ça c'est un art du montage, ça.
Worlds must be the best of the best. Those who couldn't make it simply weren't that good, right? That's why they failed to qualify and didn't get an opportunity to test their might on the world stage. They couldn't have been good enough to deserve it. But sadly, this mentality leaves certain teams by the wayside. Teams who have built up some of the most exciting competitive rosters, who at times may have been the best in the world themselves, but who never were able to prove it when under pressure, or simply had a bit of bad luck, so they never got a chance. The first instance of this was during the Season 2 circuit. Most viewers at the time thought the best team from Korea was Azubu Blaze, who along with their sister team Azubu Frost, crushed the competition throughout most Korean tournaments. But after a close...
Ce que ces 2 équipes ont mis au League of Legends de l'époque est d'une violence rare. Hein. On va pas se mentir, hein, c'était dangereux. Oh les noms là, Gamsung. D'ailleurs je crois que Gamsung... Non, Magnoun et Un là.
3-2 series lost to their sister team Frost in the summer playoffs, followed by another narrow 3-2 series loss to Najin Sword in the Korean regional finals. They weren't able to make it to that year's World Championship and show how good they really were. Similarly, during the Season 3 Chinese League, a team called Positive Energy largely crushed all the competition they faced for the entirety of 2013. They came in second during the spring season and were crowned champions, taking home first place during the summer season leading into the World Championship. but that didn't qualify them for Worlds at the time. The 2 Chinese representatives for Worlds that year were decided during a single regional tournament that occurred after the summer season, where the top 2 teams earned qualification. This tournament would sadly leave Positive Energy by the wayside as they were knocked out almost immediately. But this documentary is on the king of those almost made it.
Peut-être que cette équipe-là aurait déjà mis la domination chinoise dès le début, hein, mais on n'aurait pas tout le débat.
Today, their name has turned into a bit of a joke, but a team of players who you could very well argue deserve the same recognition of World Championship teams of the past. This is the story of KT Rolster.
Welcome.
If you conceivably wanted to, you could trace the story of KT all the way back to the year 1885. In this year, the Statue of Liberty was delivered to the United States, professional football was legalized in Britain, and off in Korea, a company would be founded bearing the name Korea Telegram's Hongsun Administration. Fast forward to the year 1981, and this same company would be renamed Korea Telecom. Today, Korea Telecom, or the KT Corporation, is the largest telecommunications company in South Korea, providing landline phone service to 90% of the country, as well as internet service to about half the population. Now, in Korea, there's a fairly rich history of companies sponsoring and supporting sports teams to help promote their brands, something that will in turn give the professional athletes funding and resources that they otherwise might not have, as well as exposure for the big
du Royal Club de ceux qui n'abandonnent jamais. Parlez mieux de ceux qui n'abandonnent pas.
Team competing in the Korean baseball organization, the KT shooting team, who has won a number of gold medals at Olympics and other shooting events, as well as the KT Sonic Boom, who play in the Korean Basketball League. As popular as traditional sports are, though, not many events match the popularity and success of esports in South Korea. So naturally, KT also founded a multi-gaming organization in 1999, who today bears the name KT Rolster.
Et là, on va parler d'un truc que vous ne connaissez pas. Mais il va y avoir des noms, notamment
War players meant to compete in the various star leagues of that era. KT was a big name in the country with plenty of money to throw around, so they were quickly able to gather a large number of successful superstars, the biggest of which being a player who went by the in-game name of Yellow. Yellow was considered one of the best Zerg players in the early 2000s and was highly respected, but sadly he didn't have too many titles to show for it. The only events he would take home first place in were minor tournaments. Famously, he would never win any premier Star League events, which
Elle qui boxeur, nada. Là c'est des gros. Un jour on se fera les histoires des bandes de joie aussi. Ça peut être intéressant. J'allume la lumière, je reviens. Mais on se fera les histoires des bandes de joie aussi. Je pense que il va y avoir des vidéos intéressantes à ce propos. Parce que les bandes de joie, c'est vraiment une grande partie de l'histoire de l'e-sport. Mais Bomber aussi, il est un joueur. Hein. Alors c'est pas, je crois pas que ce L-Key là soit le L-Key Foreigner, parce que bah tu vois il y a le petit drapeau coréen. Mais
earned him the nickname King of Silver. Oftentimes when he got second or failed to perform up to expectations, it was because of a player who would eventually turn into a very notable rival, Boxer. Boxer was a Terran.
Boxer. Là on commence à rentrer dans l'histoire là on commence à rentrer dans l'histoire.
Player who was incredibly well respected in his own right and was one of the most innovative players in StarCraft.
Alors non, quand je parle de bande de joie, ça s'écrit comme ça.
But this rivalry would heat up and become especially interesting because Boxer was sponsored by another telecommunications organization known as SK Telecom. This began a rivalry that still goes on today between SKT1 and KT Rolster, known as the Telecom Wars. During those early years of the Telecom Wars, SK
Mais c'est pas le moment de parler des bandes de joie. En gros, les bandes de joie, c'est les légendes de StarCraft. Un peu comme il y a les légendes de Smash Bros, dont les gens ont parlé, notamment de Melee. les Banjois sont les légendes de StarCraft, c'est des dieux sur StarCraft et ils sont 4 ou 5 je crois, et ils se sont partagés les podiums de l'histoire de StarCraft 1 comme personne n'a jamais rien partagé en Europe.
Yellow was very rarely ever able to beat Boxer. Both players were highly respected, but this rivalry quickly devolved into one of the most lopsided that you can find across any sport, which was honestly shocking considering how talented Yellow was. These images showcase the ELO ratings of top StarCraft players in the early 2000s, and it goes to show just how highly rated Yellow was alongside Boxer. Talent-wise, there were times you could argue Yellow was the best player there was, but he, along with the rest of KT, couldn't ever translate that into a first-place Star League finish. It's as though the organization was cursed. They could have all the great talent they wanted, but that talent couldn't ever finish a tournament on top.
Et puis,
luckily, things would turn around for the team in the latter half of the decade.
Ouais.
Eventually, Yellow, as well as many of the other KT players, would leave the team, either due to old age forcing them into retirement, or many would be conscripted into the military. In South Korea, all male citizens between the ages of 18 and 28 are forced to perform compulsory military service, which is what happened to Yellow in 2008. But luckily for KT fans, they would get their hands on a new exciting talent, a player who the organization would pick up in 2007, who went by the name Flash.
Flash. Et on va comprendre, je vais vous dire un truc maintenant. On va être clair là-dessus tous ensemble, hein, je vous le dis très officiellement maintenant. Flash, c'est Faker. C'est-à-dire que il a, à ce moment-là, dans l'e-sport, la présence que Faker a maintenant. C'est Dieu. C'est littéralement Dieu. C'est un des premiers joueurs e-sport à avoir des sponsors personnels, à être dans les pubs, à être... Enfin, c'est Faker maintenant, concrètement. Et je pense très sincèrement que s'il n'y avait pas eu Flash et le développement de Flash sur StarCraft, Faker n'aurait pas le développement qu'il a eu maintenant. Parce que, en fait, Flash a tracé le chemin quelque part. Je vous déteste.
For those of you who don't know much about the history of StarCraft, Flash is often considered the best StarCraft player of all time.
Oui, ah oui, non mais il était trop fort.
절망적입니다. 3세트 어떻게 빠르잡니까 이제?
와, 정말 가위에 눌린 듯한, 깨지 못하는 가위에 눌린 듯한 느낌을 받을 것 같아요.
프로토스에게 이 영혼은 자비가 없습니다.
Oh my god, more Lingzo are coming up right now. A group of Marines have come in. The medics continuing to heal them. Some great micro here by Flash. The CJ dealing huge amounts of damage. And Flash breaks through again. Flash is everywhere on this map right now. Hero having such a hard time.
Flash wins the ASL Finals Season 3. 3-1 versus Hero. Meaning this is his third ASL victory.
The economy of Flash, or rather Shine, Flash hitting everywhere at once.
Oh, their racer is way too strong. So many drones falling down here. Shine's entire economy being devastated in a matter of seconds.
Shine was hanging on, but all of a sudden, in a matter of seconds, Flash just hit everywhere, and it didn't seem like Shine could keep up. GG!
And that is that. Flash, the two-time ASL champion, the greatest player, becomes even greater.
Bonjour is a Korean title that was given to 5 players throughout the life of StarCraft Brood War, a title meant to distinguish them as one of the gods of the game. A player who's not just the best, but someone so dominant that they define their entire era of play. Only a handful of players have ever been good enough
LoL, on
to
peut pas
earn
mettre ça
this
parce que
title.
LoL évolue trop
Here you can
vite.
see a chart tracking their ratings
Pour mettre des vraiment, à part
alongside
peut-être
other
Faker,
top
mais
players
si on LoL
across
évolue
the
trop vite
years.
pour mettre ce genre
When
de
we make
titre-là.
this more readable by highlighting each Bonjour's career compared to the other players of their
Je l'ai
time,
vu,
we
je
can
l'ai
see
vu
that most of
gagner
them follow a pattern. They
Life, l'homme qui a gagné jusqu'au moment où il allait en prison parce qu'il a triché. Et oui, mais je l'ai vu on stage, je l'ai vu, j'étais à l'Iron Squid 2 et il a gagné l'Iron Squid 2 de manière assez incroyable. Enfin, le niveau de jeu de Life était terrible. Et c'était vraiment trop cool. On aura quelques années, mais c'est un peu tôt, Imo. Ouais, alors je sais pas s'il y est encore, mais il a fait de la prison. Parce que ça déconne zéro en Corée, le match fixing. C'est numéro iconique duo réel. Ça déconne zéro en Corée. Hein. Il y a eu trop de problèmes dans l'histoire de StarCraft pour que maintenant ils aient le droit. Donc oui, Life, je pense pas qu'il y soit encore, mais il a fait de la prison. Pour ça, pour match fixing du coup.
Start off a little low as they work their way up to a dominating performance before eventually trailing off and they retire. That seems to have happened to every single Bonjour, except for Flash. Flash was almost immediately one of the best players in the world right out of the gate and remained the best for the remaining life of Brood War. His level of success truly earned him the title Best of All Time, and luckily for KT fans, he was theirs. Flash played for KT almost his entire career and finally earned the team some trophies to match their talent. This was an era that really solidified KT Rolster as a top organization who now have the first place finishes to back up their supposedly great talent. But as the turn of the decade rolled around, change was in the air. A new esport had emerged that was quickly sweeping the nation of Korea alongside the rest of the world, and as StarCraft was slowly dying off, this new game was there to take its place, and it exploded in popularity beyond anything we had ever seen before. In the early 2010s, League of Legends was the hot new esport taking the world by storm.
Kuro Scarlet. Ah, c'est tout. Après les autres, bah, Lilac, mais.
In South Korea, being the country who took esports more seriously than all others, quickly picked up on the game as it replaced StarCraft as the nation's new national pastime. KT would naturally be one of the...
Un joueur qui a un match fixe en Chine et s'en est bien sorti. Comment ça? Développe? C'est quoi cette histoire? Je suis pas au courant de ça. Je suis curieux. Il a pris 1000 balles et on en a plus parlé. Ah, pour 1000 balles, ça vaut pas le coup de match fixe. À haut niveau en tout cas. Ah, tu parles de Beau. Oui, alors Beau c'est plus compliqué que ça. C'est que Beau il s'est retrouvé dans un circuit de match fixing qui est la LDL, qui est du coup en gros l'académie de la LPL quelque part. Et il avait fait ça, c'était tout début. Et c'est même pas exactement lui de souvenir, parce que si je comprends bien, il s'est fait sanctionner, mais c'est en gros sa structure qui l'a poussé à. Et lui qui a pris parce qu'il l'a fait, mais naturellement, il ne devait pas le faire. Et du coup, ça lui est tombé dessus, mais il y a beaucoup de gens, beaucoup d'autres gens qui ont été sanctionnés et beaucoup qui n'ont pas été sanctionnés. Et Beau méritait pas ça. Je pense que Beau méritait pas ça dans l'histoire. Et si Beau a pas été ban Riot compétitif en entier, il y a une raison à ça.
Early teams to join in on the hype as they created two sister teams to
Ah non, mais par
compete
contre,
in
il
the
est ban
game,
circuit
the
chinois à
KT
vie.
Rolster Arrows and the KT Rolster Bullets. Sister teams may sound like an odd concept
Sinon, il
for
serait
newer
déjà
League
dans
fans
LPL,
as
hein.
they
Il
were
est trop fort,
outlawed
Beau.
by Riot a little while ago, but essentially
Je peux t'assurer que FPX, la mauvaise de plus pouvoir faire jouer Beau, parce que Beau c'est peut-être le mec qui peut apporter un titre mondial à l'Europe. Hein.
the goal behind them was to have two teams under the same organization that could benefit from mutual collaboration, similarly to how the academy system works today. So that means not only could two pro teams live in the same team house, work with the same coaches, and scrimmage against each other regularly in the hopes that everyone gets better and improves at the same time, but the two teams could also do things like shuffle their rosters around a little bit, trade players, swap them out, and see if they could find the best possible combination of 5 guys for each team who synergize perfectly with each other. The difference between KT Rolster A and KT Rolster B back in the day was kind of interesting as each of these separate teams approached playing League of Legends differently.
Il n'y a aucune raison que ce soit pas en LPL en fait.
The better of the two teams were the Bullets, as summed up nicely by Monte Cristo in a 2017 interview with Blitz Esports. Maybe they didn't have all the best players, maybe they didn't have all the stars, but they
Peut-être qu'ils n'ont pas les meilleurs players, peut-être qu'ils n'ont pas toutes les stars, mais ils ont un excellent planning. Ah ouais, ok, ils ont des excellents plans, une excellente macro et l'exécution des stratégies étranges. Et les sœurs, non, il y avait des trucs sympas dans les teams sœurs en vrai. Effectivement, c'était moins drôle pour la compétition parce que bon, quand t'avais deux teams sœurs qui détruisaient tout, c'est pas drôle. Mais overall, les teams sœurs ont apporté des trucs intéressants. Genre Azubu Frost, Azubu Blaze, Senji Entus, les deux KT du coup. Samsung White Blue évidemment. Il y avait quoi d'autre comme légendaire team sœur? Mais c'était moins drôle. Oh, Yorai qui lâche son meilleur raid. Merci Yorai. Tiens, d'ailleurs, je me rends compte qu'il faut que je mette les alert box au-dessus. Voilà. Merci Yorai pour le raid. Cette fois, t'as pas fail. Let's go. Bienvenue à tout le monde. Du coup, pour ceux qui... Petit point pour les nouveaux arrivants. Installez-vous bien. On regarde JB99 qui fait des documentaires sur l'histoire de League of Legends. Et aujourd'hui, on s'occupe de KT Rolster, qui a une longue histoire à raconter. Et là, il vient pendant un quart d'heure de mettre en place l'histoire de KT Rolster. Et on va pouvoir s'attaquer enfin à KT Rolster League of Legends. Installez-vous bien si vous aimez l'histoire de League of Legends, si vous aimez ce genre de docu. Et ben, on est ici, on est bien. Et ensuite, après, j'irai me faire la Game 3 la finale des Worlds pour analyser un peu tout ça parce qu'il y a des choses à en dire. Sur ce, on peut continuer.
Did have excellent planning, excellent macro, and excellent execution of strange strategies. The Bullets were the team who were best at being creative with their tactics, and although having a slightly worse talent pool...
Alors, attendez, on va juste faire le petit point parce que j'aime bien. Insec, Ryu, Score. Alors, Mafa, c'est vrai que j'avais oublié, mais il y avait un Mafa. Contre Gorilla, Zepha. Là aussi, il y a un nom qu'on n'a pas entendu depuis longtemps. Et Save, pareil, j'ai un nom que j'ai pas entendu depuis longtemps. Mafa, c'était pas dingue, ouais, mais je sais pas pourquoi il fait partie des noms qui m'ont marqué un peu.
And even then, they did still have some superstar talent who could pull off some exciting mechanical plays as well, all of which combined garnering them a huge amount of hype and dedicated fans in those early years. Maybe one of the most famous examples of one of their legendary mechanical players would probably have to be Insec, who was the team's jungler and top laner in 2013 and 2014. He invented a particularly exciting way to play the jungler Lee Sin that almost everyone uses.
Pour la forme de souvenir, et je crois que c'est toi, Ins, qui en avait parlé. Mais en gros, le move était déjà fait en Europe par d'autres, notamment par Diamond, mais lui, il l'exécutait juste trop vite, trop fort, trop tout le temps, et donc c'est lui qui l'a mis vraiment en avant. Et c'est pour ça qu'on appelle ça maintenant une Insec, le move classique de Lee Sin à base de dash ward kick dans le dos, et Q ou pas, selon l'angle, selon ce que tu veux faire. Et c'est un move que Insec a apporté aux yeux du monde, au même titre que Diamond a apporté le « si je prenais un jungle qui clear plus vite et que j'allais dans la jungle adverse, il se passe quoi? Ah bah je gagne !» Voilà. Ce genre de truc, au début du jeu, c'était pas naturel. Et il fallait qu'il y ait des gens, notamment Insec, qui amènent ça aux yeux du monde.
Today, Lee Sin's ultimate is an ability that on its own damages opponents and knocks them back away from Lee himself. The damage is pretty nice and it can be a useful way to help your team disengage if you have to get away from your opponent and run away, but Insec found an even better way to use the ability. If you use some of Lee's other abilities alongside a ward to position yourself behind your opponent very quickly, then you can knock an enemy towards your team, being even more useful and giving Lee an even more dynamic playstyle where he can be used defensively or aggressively when fighting. Again, this is something that pretty much every Lee Sin player does nowadays, but Insec was the first to do it, inventing a technique that got a lot of people excited to do things like look up KT highlights whenever they could. It took a little while for the Bullets to come into their own and become a top team in Korea, but they would quickly become the face of the KT organization and form the core of the team when the two sister teams merged under one name. They had players with huge potential and crazy levels of skill like Ryu, Score, Sumde, Kakao, Insec, and Nagne, almost all of which were players that are still playing League competitively today, 7 years later. The KT Bullets really developed some of the game's top talent we would see for years to come. But we do have to talk about the Arrows for a moment because of one big event they competed in. So while Monte Cristo described the Bullets as a strategic and innovative team in that interview, he also spent a few seconds describing the KT Rolster Arrows, but simply called them a hot mess of chaos, which is exactly what they were.
Change immediately. Sunday is right there. No, I mean, Sunday getting caught, taking down the stun, Andy helping. There's the flash.
Alors, c'est l'heure de l'Epic Pen. Pour juste un détail, je veux pas que vous passiez à côté, ce serait dommage quand même. Ce serait quand même assez dommage de passer à côté d'un détail pareil, puisque ici on voit Marine, on en discutera certainement un moment, je sais qu'il y a une vidéo de JB là-dessus, donc on la fera certainement. Ici on voit Easyhoon qui était le remplaçant de Faker à des moments. Ici on voit Bang, Ici, on voit Wolf, qui seront 2 champions du monde avec Faker et Marine aussi. Mais en face, il y a des choses. Il y a Someday, qui, si je ne me plante pas, est en LCS maintenant. Il y a Arrow, qui évoluera pas mal en LCK derrière. Et puis, il y a ce mec-là que tout le monde a oublié. Je pense que personne n'a jamais entendu parler de ce mec-là. Et il faut lui rendre honneur. Parce que ce mec-là... Et oui, à l'époque, il y avait Rookie chez KT. Rookie, fucking Rookie. Le Rookie de IG, le Rookie qui aurait dû être au World cette année parce que son année chez V5 est indécente. Rookie, les mecs. Déjà à l'époque.
There's a Lulu shield. Can he get away? 2 flashes. Use rookie with the command protect. Amazing play from KT to keep him alive.
Tu noteras que j'ai pas mis en avant Kakao.
Meanwhile, over the wall. Oh, Kakao gets caught a little bit. Another command protect. Someday coming back to lane. What are you doing? Someday.
Après, il a
giving this one up. No bang. Gets a little bit too close to the turret. This is insane.
Alors, on va finir ça. Bon, c'est un beau bordel, par contre, on va pas se mentir.
He's got no mana. Yeah, I know. Just trying to auto him under turret.
Oh là là, oh ouais, oh là, oh les tourelles qui font pas de dégâts. Oh là là. Et du coup, il a trahi, tant pis pour lui. Il a été champion du monde en Chine, avec les Chinois, je te rappelle. Voilà. Dans une équipe qui a été d'une dominance rare. Il a préféré le chèque au perf d'une vraie. Il a préféré le chèque au perf du. Mais l'écho, t'es bourré, l'écho.
How good he is, he comes in, tries to get a little bit too late, nice timing for the snipe for Oro. Oh, he got the kill. He got the kill.
One roster the Arrows came up with during the 2014 OGN Summer Split was a thing of strange, twisted beauty. This included Someday and Kakao, who were swapped over from the Bullets, some younger players named Arrow and Hachani in the bot lane, coupled with a promising young mid laner named Rookie. And yes, that is the same Rookie who just carried Invictus Gaming to a World Championship in 2018. Every single one of these players on the Arrows were just teenagers at the time, 16, 17, 18 years old. Nobody expected them to amount to much, since naturally they were super underdeveloped as league competitors. They didn't have very clean play, they didn't have sound strategies, and their execution left a lot to be desired. But in this 2014 Summer Split, to everyone's surprise, the Bullets fell out of the group stage, and it was the KT Arrows who made it into the tournament bracket alone. And then something really weird happened with them. They won after squeaking past Najin Shield in a narrow 3-2 victory.
Donc là, il y a qui? Il y a KT Arrows, Najin Sword. Ah bon, les deux Najin. Ça, c'est le problème des Teamsters, c'est que voilà, là, il y a Najin, KT, bon, KT qui a disparu là-bas, Samsung White, Samsung Blue et SKT. Il y a 1, 2, 3, il y a 8 slots pour 1, 2, 3, 4 structures. C'est problématique.
Suddenly, the Arrows were further than they had ever been before in a Korean playoff. They hadn't ever made the semifinals. They were in uncharted territory. Now, they had to face off against SK Telecom T1S. This was a daunting task. SK had never lost to KT in bracket. Here in League's early years, it looked like it was going to be a repeat of everything that happened in Brood War. SK dominating the Telecom War rivalry, winning champions while KT always came up second. And this T1S roster, coached by K-Coma and built around EasyHoon, should have no problem dealing with the KT Arrows. But then they won. Again, 3-2, twice in a row now. The KT Arrows and their hot mess of gameplay had squeaked into the finals. This was just shocking. What the hell was happening? How is this the KT team that is now repping the org and now having to go up against Samsung Galaxy Blue? Yes, that's Samsung, the company that made your phone and your fridge and your dishwasher. Samsung Blue were currently coming into the finals after beating their own sister team, and they were the defending OGN champions from the previous spring split. Their sister team that year would go on to win the World Championship, and they were looking like an incredibly dominating organization. It's absurd to think that the Arrows would even have a chance against them, but I think you can see where this is going.
Oh, les casters coréens, incroyable. Deft qui ne veut pas évoluer dans un Maokai, évidemment. L'ancien ulti Maokai, on en parle. l'impression que c'était bien plus big avant alors que pas du tout. Tu connais pas l'ancien Ultimao, Gamma? Alors l'ancien Ultimao, alors à la toute origine, si je me plante pas, je crois que ça commençait comme ça, à vérifier. Mais en gros, cette zone là que Maokai a autour de lui, ça a aspiré une partie des dégâts, si ce n'est tous les dégâts, qui étaient faits dans la zone, et quand ça explosait, ça renvoyait ces dégâts là en fait. Et à la base, je crois que ça se posait à un endroit, et ensuite ça a été changé pour que ça le suive, comme on le voit là. Et c'était un peu fort pour un tank. Un peu. Et il avait plusieurs assists. Oui, c'est vrai qu'il y avait ça aussi. Il y avait des mécaniques un peu bizarres autour du mana. Et KT, l'équipe pas prévue, l'équipe qui ne devait pas gagner. Ça me rappelle lui, ça me rappelle les Worlds.
Where they would narrowly beat Najin Shield, their rivals SKT, and Samsung Blue one after another. This is just ridiculous. Look at this bracket. On the one side, you have Samsung Blue taking care of business, looking stronger than ever. 3-0 sweeping Jin Air, almost sweeping their sister team who goes on to win Worlds, carrying all the momentum as defending OGN champions. Well, KT just narrowly...
Il n'est pas impossible que cette défaite de Samsung White va créer le précédent mental pour que l'équipe a gagné les Worlds après.
Squeaks by on their way to a championship. No big deal. This ridiculous, majestic tournament series was a work of strange and beautiful art. These games were fun as hell to watch, and I'm sure they were a joyous occasion for KT fans to remember. But sadly, this is not what KT's early League of Legends rosters are remembered for. No, it wasn't this finals that defined their early years. It was a previous OGN championship that virtually everyone still remembers today. Let's rewind the clock to the year 2013. This was the first year that League really began taking off in Korea, and it was the first year that KT Rolster started finding success. During the winter and spring...
Pour l'anecdote, je viens d'un monde où on pouvait discuter très sereinement et être très sérieux en disant la Corée n'aime pas League of Legends et ne viendront pas sur le jeu. Et c'était une discussion qui avait du sens à ce moment-là. 2013, c'est le début pour la Corée. Le jeu est sorti en 2010.
Spring seasons, the Bullets in particular would put up some fairly respectable performances and establish themselves as one of the better, more exciting teams in the entire Korean League. They were certainly better than their sister team, the Arrows, so most KT fans looked to them to bring home something to be proud of. Don't just be the Kings of Silver. It was the summer split where everything would finally click and they would make a run for the title. After getting out of their group stage without too much trouble, their first
Pour ceux qui n'étaient pas là, le Kings of Silver, c'est l'histoire de KT sur StarCraft où ils étaient toujours deuxième jusqu'à ce... Oh, c'est beau ça. Là, il y a des noms là.
All names that veteran League fans will remember well, but they would beat them 3-2. Next up, they had the Mad Life-led CJ Frost, who
là encore, il y a des noms là. Ah, là, on aime là.
Nearly won that world championship the previous year, and they destroyed them 3-0. The only team standing in the Bullets' way of a championship was none other than their rivals, SK Telecom T1-2. This was a team that, like KT, had never won anything before. They only managed to qualify for OGN that previous spring. They got third place in their first split, but didn't really have an impressive resume. It was a team made up of mostly young rookies at the time, Piglet, Pumandu, Bengi, Impact, and a very young, budding mid laner named Faker. Little did either team know, but this series would become a watershed moment for both organizations, as the results largely predicted the future direction that both teams would end up going in. Whoever won, it would be their first Korean championship, their first major victory in the League of Legends era of the Telecom Wars, and it was one hell of a close series.
And they're waiting, there's a snowball in the bottom, but will they get it? Will this be first blood? It will!
Pour le moment, à vérifier, mais je crois que Koma a moins de titres que Faker maintenant, hein, puisqu'il a jamais été dans les teams qui ont gagné les Worlds derrière. Yo Fox, comment ça va? T'es qui? Je sais pas, qu'est-ce que tu fais là? Il est 4 fois champion du monde, comment? Comment ça, 4 fois? Il était pas chez Damwon l'année où Damwon gagne. Hein. Je crois pas. Hein. Je crois qu'il arrive justement après. Et du coup, il n'est que 3 fois. Hein. La métis de Team Void était légendaire, ça ressemble à de la foule à rame. À l'époque, c'était un peu un sacré bordel. Ah oui, mais du coup, novembre 2020, c'est-à-dire qu'il arrive après les Worlds. Si tu regardes dans les résultats, dans ses résultats sur Wikipédia, je pense pas qu'il y ait 2020 World Championship. Parce qu'en 2020, il est chez V5. Un gas mid-sup. Ouais, oui, quelle époque. Quelle époque. Pas V5, Vini Vici. Ou non, Vici Gaming, c'est ça. De souvenir, c'est ça l'histoire. Hein. Il est pas champion du monde avec Damwon, hein. Je crois vraiment pas.
But it will be for score. They trade. But it's going to be a jungler breaker. Oh, a double kill for score. A huge beginning for him. Piglet having to use his ultimate to get away. Everybody gets out. They get the kill, but they may. Oh, what a shot! What a true shot barrage from score. So they do get Ryu, but here we go now. Insect coming in to try to engage. Impact from the top with that slicing maelstrom. A huge 3-man shockwave. Piglet on the outside doing a lot of damage. And oh my gosh, has SK held no despite another double kill from Piglet.
Coma, il a mis la daronne à l'abri il y a longtemps. Il est 3 fois champion du monde, le mec.
For score, a quadra kill for score, and that is it. Game over. Be careful.
Il est décemment le coach champion du monde.
D'ailleurs,
il est plus coach maintenant, il est directeur
There goes the Nexus. GG.
KT had hit the ground running, taking a convincing 2-0 lead in the best of 5. Things were looking bright as the Bullets were playing well, but surprisingly, this didn't seem to phase SK all that much, and they didn't quit.
Piglet's in a little bit of trouble. There's the Whimsy on the Piglet. He's getting low. There's the barrier. He does pop and score. Gets popped up into the air with the ultimate. They're going to go ahead and trade. So far, Mappa very low. A double kill for Piglet on top of all of it. And that, oh, Lulu, if they can get Zac out of the way, and they do, what a huge move. Suddenly, the support's in a bit of trouble. Ryu gets taken down. This is SKT's fight. Goodbye, score. Double kill for Faker. There goes the Nexus, and we are going to Game 5.
SK had managed to tie the series 2-2, which back in those days sent the game into a blind pick Game 5. Blind pick meaning that while normally in a usual champion select phase, teams will pick and ban characters in order, so no more than one champion will be in game at a time. Now there were no bans and a free-for-all.
L'idée, et c'était une idée pas bête, hein, parce qu'on l'a vu pour les Worlds, etc., que bah, le side est problématique, enfin le side en draft est problématique. Du coup, leur idée, c'était si il y a Game 5, eh bien, on se retrouve tous en blind pick, comme ça, il n'y a pas d'avantage de draft. C'est vous prenez la compo et on se tape dessus.
Anyone can pick anything, even if that results in a mirror matchup. Here, the two mid laners for both sides, Ryu and Faker, would both lock in Zed, and SKT would really start pulling ahead.
Hit from the vision of Faker there for just a moment. First tower goes down in that bottom lane in favor of KT Bullets. And look at this, Ryu gets the Ignite lane down on him.
Yep, he does, and there's the Death Mark. Going in, Death Mark on both of them. Stand United coming in onto Faker. Impact there, Ryu trying to get away, flashes under the taunt.
Ouais, mais il y a de la triche,
il y a la chaîne qui s'est pointée dans
l'O1 là.
Oh, Kakao getting completely caught. Body slam into Death Mark, and a Death Mark's not an easy thing to live with.
KT's chances of winning were disappearing fast. All hope had evaporated from the team. And then, as if to rub salt in the wound, the most famous outplay in League of Legends history occurred right there and then.
I'm like, even though I only have a mat on the floor, I think he's in the bed. Oh, Faker maybe in trouble here. Death Mark tries to clean it up for Ryu. Oh, look at the cleanse, look at the moves. Faker, what was that?
Aïe. Aïe.
After winning their first Korean championship, that same
Look at the
SK
plays, look
Telecom
at the
roster would
move.
go on to beat the Bullets again in the regional finals. This meant that neither KT team would qualify for Worlds that year. They would have to sit at home as they went on to see their rivals, SK Telecom, go on to win Korea's first World Championship. The following year was the miracle year the Arrows were able to make that run to win the Korean final for KT's first championship. But even in that bright and exciting moment for KT fans, 2014 still had an overarching feeling of sadness. That same year, both of KT's teams, the Arrows and Bullets, would again fail to qualify for the World Championship, as Samsung would be the dominant force, winning in 2014. But as the season came to a close, an interesting development occurred. Top Korean players were being bought out by other regions. It was called the Great Korean Exodus, where most of the region's top talent would leave to go to China, Europe, and North America.
Ils avaient bien raison,
As much
parce
as
que
Korea was
fallait se faire de
infatuated with
l'argent.
esports, this year North America and China in particular began seeing big money getting invested in.
D'ailleurs, à propos d'argent, vous ai-je déjà parlé du fait de sub ici et d'utiliser votre Prime Gaming? Voilà, je le rappelle, c'est important, ça peut aider les gens, ça peut aider moi personnellement d'ailleurs, et ça a beaucoup de valeur. D'ailleurs, je reprendrai les termes du grand Mister MV, puisque c'est le retour de l'être aimé, c'est la richesse, c'est le bonheur, c'est la santé, le Prime Gaming, donc n'oubliez pas le Prime Gaming.
To League of Legends teams, Korea's financial situation paled in comparison, and when million-dollar offers were being thrown at some of the top Korean players, the local Korean teams either couldn't or maybe simply didn't match them, meaning most of their top players would leave the region. The peak of this exodus culminated when every single player from the world champion Samsung team were bought out by various Chinese organizations as they all left to play for various teams across the Yellow Sea. Although some of the best Korean players still remain, such as Faker, who stayed with SK Telecom, this presented a new opportunity. A huge amount of competition had vanished,
Il y a beaucoup des Fakers d'ailleurs. Le fait de rester chez T1 fait T1 et Faker se connaissent très bien. Faker sait ce qu'il peut attendre de T1, T1 sait ce qu'il peut attendre de Faker, ça l'a développé. Exactement, c'est l'instant passion. L'instant
The merging
passion.
of KT's two rosters had some growing pains and left them with a fairly mediocre finish in the spring season, but when summer came around, suddenly they were looking incredible. KT had kept almost all of their top talent, only losing Insect to the Exodus as he would go off to China. Other than that, they remained together and their roster was beginning to work really well, showing their potential. With a chance at a new team taking the #1 spot in Korea and possibly the world, KT had an enormous opportunity ahead of them. That summer split, they would go on to beat nearly every single team in the regular season, qualifying them for playoffs, and after miraculously beating the QUE Tigers, one of the best new up-and-coming Korean teams, they would be placed into the finals to face off against their old rivals, SK Telecom T1.
Et on y
This
retourne.
was a beautiful chance at redemption.
Et on y retourne, la télé comme moi.
Goodbye, Nagne. A kill for Marn and Bang, untouched in the back, going after everyone. Goodbye, Peekaboo. A double kill for Marn. Wolf trying to find more plays to make. Someday finally hits Meganar right before he's taken out by Baker. And it looks like this is going to be an ace. And this is almost certainly going to be
En même temps, ce roster-là T1 est ingérable. C'est trop dur de jouer contre ces mecs-là.
Coming from the side, no, he's got a lot of health. And wow, this is Bang takes out Victor. Peekaboo, Bang, can he get him as well? Or Bangy trying to take him out? Wolf gets a bloodthirsty kill. And meanwhile, Peekaboo goes down as well. And SKT turns that Faker first blood into more. They're going to dive score as well. It's an ace for KT. Only Nagne score and Someday remaining, and Nagne burning down. He'll get taken out by Wolf's Ignite. He's going for the next one. They're delaying it. And Bang is going to win. Champion summer for his team, SK Telecom. 3-0 in the spring season, 3-0 in the summer season. This is the year of SKT.
At this point, fans began to wonder if KT Rolster was simply cursed. It was around here that a joke began forming surrounding KT. don't get excited. The moment you get excited
En fait,
about
KT
a roster
Rolster,
that
c'est les
KT
G2 de
puts
Corée.
together,
Hein.
that's when they'll choke, lose,
Ou G2,
and
c'est
let
les
you
KT
down.
d'Europe, on peut le voir comme
That
ça.
year
C'est
we
vraiment
did
ça.
have
Hein.
one slightly
Même si on
nice
gagne un peu
upside
plus
for
du
the
côté
team.
G2. Mais
KT would end up qualifying for their
il y a vraiment
first
cette
World
malédiction là. Hein.
Championship. They managed to make it out of the group stage at Worlds fairly easily as well, but then they would have to face off against qu'est Tigers in the first round of the bracket. This time, they would fall to the Tigers, losing a not particularly close 3-game-1 set. That
Même quand tu les attends pas,
KT would have to sit
quand
and
tu les
watch
attends,
as
ils
their
gagnent pas.
rivals, SK Telecom, went on to win their second World
TSM fera jamais pire que ces Wars là, impossible. Impossible que. Enfin, genre, G2 c'est plus serein. Ouais, on peut voir ça comme ça aussi. C'est vrai que G2 c'est un peu plus serein, effectivement. Mais ces Wars là, je sais pas je me souviens plus ce qu'a fait TSM, mais ils peuvent forcément faire pire. Je veux dire, 2020, ils font 0-6. C'est pas possible. C'est pas possible autrement. Mais c'est pas ces Wars là, c'était 2020.
Take down the final Nexus turrets. It does not look good for Kuro and his team. qu'est Tigers are falling. SKT will be your first ever two-time world champions. SK Telecom T1, your two-time world champions.
In the 2016 season, things would continue spiraling downhill for the KT organization, at least in the early parts of the year. KT would actually manage to beat SK during the spring season and finish ahead of them in the standings, but when playoffs rolled around, SK swept them 3-0 again. It was beginning to feel like this KT Rolster team was just cursed to be no different than Yellow during his time on KT. Both iterations of KT Rolster were filled with incredibly talented players, possibly being the most skilled players of anyone in the world at times, yet whenever people got excited for a big tournament or event where there might be a chance for them taking home a crown, KT would always choke. Not only were they struggling to take home first place, but at this point KT could hardly deal with their rivals anymore. I mean, SK Telecom had won 2 world championships now, whereas KT only even qualified for 1. Even if you just want to talk about the rivalry in terms of how well they played versus each other head-to-head in the Telecom Wars, things were just as ugly, if not worse. At this point, SKT had a 20-game-6 advantage over KT Rolster in the Telecom Wars during the League of Legends era. Now that includes all of the individual games played between the two, but they were almost always in best of 2, best of 3, or best of 5 sets. If you want to just tally who won the sets themselves, SKT had won 8 sets. They tied once back when you could still tie in the Korean League, and KT had only won a single set in the 2016 spring regular season. As heated as this rivalry had been hyped up previously, it had turned into one of the most one-sided affairs we've ever seen in League, but KT would finally be able to throw this monkey off their back pretty soon. During the 2016 summer split of LCK, things were starting off similarly to how they looked in previous years. KT had an exciting roster that was filled to the brim with potential, finishing top 3 at the end of the regular season. However, like those seasons of old, they couldn't deal with their rivals SK Telecom and finished underneath them in the standings after losing both sets they played. During playoffs though, KT looked determined to not let history repeat itself. They beat Samsung Galaxy 3-0 to make it into the next round, where they would face off against their old rivals. How did things start? Well, not very good. They would fall down 2-0 early on in the series, looking at a dismal situation, but they weren't about to let their rivals sweep them this time around.
KT is going to try on some Duke as well. Score looking for it. Flash away from Duke, but the flash onto him with the Unboro is there for Score, and that will be first blood coming through for KT. Going to try to get some vision. Score comes into the back through the magical journey. They're going to be looking for it. Blank goes for it. He's going to get locked down. The W coming in. He knocks him away with the explosive cast, but Wolf already falls. Blank goes down as well. 2 kills picked up for KT.
KT, but 1 ace for SK.
14-2. Ah oui. Vérifie n'avait pas hésité jusqu'à la fin de la fin.
Look at Baker. He's going to be able to kill him. Indeed, Someday goes in, ults back Blank. Score taking a hell of a lot of damage from Baker. The Cassiopeia is still doing some relevant damage. Animal zone down. Baker being popped up. Nice Unboro from Score. They take him down. Fly finds the kill. And curtain call opened up. They want to give that one over to Arrow. Unable to do it. As Score, good problems. He just does too much damage. Without Fly, he's going to take a bunch of damage. Might have to get the first down onto himself. Curtain call coming through, looking for the shots. And Blake's going to be the first one in the fight to go down. Fly does drop the first two onto him. Duke arrives. He's going low. Can't even snap back with the ultimate. He just falls as the Johnny finishes him off.
How many is it going to be?
Something on the chase here for Faker. Wolf running down as far as the KT tries to get onto him. The boulder will connect, and someday he's going to keep going. Has the ultimate. Gets the wall up onto Faker. Is looking for the kill. Johnny coming around the side. The Dazzle's going to connect, and someday comes up with a basically solo kill.
Le mec qui a battu T1, hein? Incroyable.
SKT go down off of a blue buff in B. Score coming in deep though, gets exhausted out by Wolf. Blank getting locked up, the Dazzle not going to connect, but it does.
Someday!
And there comes Someday. Arrow getting a big pop of damage in onto Blank. A double kill coming through as he's able to finish off Bang, and SKT are just running for the hills. Snap back from Duke as he's trying to stick in his back line. They're on the Nexus, and KT Rolster! They're gonna do it! They take down SK Telecom in the reverse sweep, bringing it back 3 games in a row, and they are going to the finals on the 20th to face against the Rocks Tigers.
KT had finally found a way to beat SK Telecom, and in really crazy fashion, reverse sweeping their rivals all those years after getting reverse swept themselves in the 2013 finals must have felt incredible. Unfortunately for their fans, in true KT style, they would lose a close 3-2 set against the Rocks Tigers in the grand finals that year, and then they lost a close 3-2 set against Samsung in the regional qualifiers, meaning, yet again, they would not be attending a world championship due to losing these incredibly close sets. Even in this year of triumph for KT, they couldn't take home a title or make it to Worlds. And of course, that year, yet again, KT had to watch their rivals go home to take their 3rd world championship, as SKT would be the first team to successfully defend a title, winning back-to-back Worlds. I don't know if there's another team in the history of esports as tortured as KT Rolster. In the offseason leading up to 2017, KT had seemingly had enough. They wanted to climb back on top of the rivalry against SKT. They wanted to take home a title rather than getting stuck with the nickname Kings of Silver again. And in that offseason, they would go out and grab some of the best talent in free agency.
Là, le roster de KT fait très peur. Là, par contre, les noms, ils sont effrayants.
Their longtime jungler, Score, would remain as an anchor point for the roster to build around, but they would sign Deft and Mata to play down bot lane, a pairing who had played on old Samsung teams, winning LCK once themselves before going off to win titles in the Chinese league. Mid lane, they would sign Pawn, who similarly had been winning titles off in China after he himself won the 2014 World Championship with Samsung White. Last but not least, KT...
Concrètement, ils ont pris mid-bot Samsung. White ou Blue, on s'en fout, ils ont pris mid-bot Samsung.
Would manage to snag Smeb, who at the time was the most exciting top laner in the world after having previously won an LCK championship with the Rocks Tigers and even coming second at a world championship, only losing to SKT. This was the most exciting roster KT had ever assembled. There hadn't ever been a super team of this magnitude created before in League, and the talent was unmatched by any other organization in the world. There were a few growing pains in the early parts of the split, as there usually are with the new roster, but they finished the season strong and were looking amazing going into playoffs. They swept MVP 3-0. They swept Samsung 3-0. They were in the finals, again, looking incredible. But that led to the fateful error of their fans getting excited about KT.
Looking fantastic, they still have not gone down the wild growth. Keep them alive and on. Goes into that Tony's hourglass, but Faker is right on top of him. Takes it out, going into the back line, trying to finish off Mana. He's able to get it. Now looking for Smeb. He flashes over the wall towards the cross, but Faker, hot on his heels, goes over with a playful trick to try to finish off the tank. Will get traded back to KT. Starts to climb to a depth, won't be able to do so. Gets locked up, gets taken down. That's 3 kills over to SKT, only losing the fifth. Pop up. Toss down on the team, trying to keep himself alive, but it's not going to happen. Peter puts another one on the board, 6-1-4 now. With the straight flashing in, end of the line comes down, collateral damage. Connects in on the net, but it's not going to do it up.
He's not done.
He's not done yet. The Ash Arrow coming through.
That's a monster.
La violence de Stephen sur cette finale est très très dure.
Less than 30 minutes on the clock. They take down the Nexus. They take down KT Rolster. They put another championship title on their belt. SKT G1 will be going to MSI.
Welcome to your new
pour le coup, c'est usual business pour Faker. Mais...
With possibly the best roster they had ever assembled, KT would lose 0-3 against their rivals SKT in the spring playoffs and getting yet another second place. They would fail in summer as well, getting knocked out by SKT 3-2, and because this is KT Rolster, of course they're gonna go and get 3-0'd, knocked out by Samsung Galaxy in the Korean Regional Finals, a Samsung team who would then go on to win that year's World Championship. As I read this script back to myself, it's only now hitting me what these players must have been feeling. Score, the jungler for KT in particular, he had been with the team since 2012, playing with them for nearly 6 straight years. I mean, he's an incredibly talented jungler. Some consider him the best jungler in League's history, and while he's had plenty of top 3 finishes now with KT to show for it, he had never gotten first. Players come and go from a team normally, and if there's some sort of loyalty like this, it's typically because you have success playing together. I honestly can't believe that Score didn't just up and leave for a better team at this time. It's incredible a player is even able to play at that high of a level for so long. In esports, careers don't last that long. They're not supposed to last that long, but Score never quit. He's still playing for KT today at the time of recording this. That level of perseverance is honestly incredible, and eventually it would pay off. At the start of the 2018 spring season, change had begun to sweep the LCK for the first time in ages. New teams with young superstars like the Afrika Freaks and Kingzone Dragon X had won promotion into the league and were now topping the standings. Old established powerhouses like SK Telecom were beginning to struggle, and for once, KT finally looked like they might be able to win a championship themselves. They would finish above SK Telecom in the standings, and when they faced them in playoffs, they handled them with ease.
This time around, Score actually gets himself in here, and Bro is yelled out from Score. Loads of damage as he's one level ahead, lands the undertow after the flash, and now a couple more. He's just holding onto it, doesn't even need it. First blood goes to Score in the jungle. KT Rolster, they've done it. It's the 3-1 victory in the Telecom War of the playoffs.
Voir ces noms-là tout en haut, ça date. Bon, à part des RX,
KT Rolster eliminate SK Telecom.
They would fall to the upstart Afrika Freaks in the following round, but things were looking good for them, particularly because things were looking so bad for their rivals. The next split, 2018 summer, SK Telecom would miss out on playoffs entirely for the first time in their team's history, and this would end up becoming one of the most competitive splits Korea had ever seen. 4 separate teams would all tie with the same record for first place, and due to tiebreak,
avec ça, c'est bête, hein, mais c'est des petits bonbons, je veux dire, voir MVP dans la liste, Giner Green Wings, je veux dire, c'est des bonbons comme on les voit plus, Premier ancien fric, ça ramène un titre à la maison réel. Griffin, les deux là, les deux insupportables.
KT would finally get to come out first. This was the first time in their history they finished first overall in a regular season. This would seed them directly into the finals for playoffs. They would face off against Griffin, one of the new upstart teams that was dominating the LCK that year after just winning promotion into the league. And KT played one of the closest grand finals you will ever see.
Attends. Alors avant qu'on arrive dans la fight, qu'est-ce que tu racontes, l'écho là? Sans Griffin et leur scouting de génie, la LPL gagne jamais les Worlds? De quoi? Ah, tu parles de Viper, du coup, I guess? Tu parles de Viper, je suppose? Parce que Sword gagne pas les Worlds, Tarzan est très bon LPL mais ne gagne pas les Worlds. Chovy, on attend toujours son titre, hein, évidemment. Enfin, il a enfin gagné la LCK, mais voilà. Vipers, ok, Aliens, non. Donc, non. Et même Kanavi, qui était le remplaçant de Tarzan à ce moment-là, ne gagne pas les Worlds. Donc oui, il y en a beaucoup qui sont partis en Chine. Bon, après, c'est un peu logique, vu quand tu vois Griffin jouer, c'est pas étonnant qu'ils partent en Chine, les mecs. Mais non, il y a un mec de ce roster qui a gagné les Worlds une fois. Il y a 3 titres en Chine. C'est tout.
Has to flash very quickly, but Mata flashes on top of him. They really want first blood over here for Def. The ultimate flies down Lahen's, no
Il a-
more
il
mobility
a fait le carré
available,
comme Pinocchio.
and there's not a lot of damage, but he still should get taken out. The zap not going to connect. Marto looking for Viper. Smeb teleported in. First blood does go over to Marto, but the
Tarzan,
double
il était
kill
chez
comes in
V5
as Smeb
avec
picks up
Rookie.
the next one and
Si je me plante pas,
survives.
je crois que c'est ça.
Damage. Ornhorn comes in, and it might just be a free kill going over as Smeb looking for more. Comes over the side, and Lahen's takes down Yukal, but now Def starts off in this fight, and Score is doing so much damage.
Non, t'as raison, c'était 5 quarts ça. Tarzan, il était chez qui? J'ai un doute. On ira voir ça après.
He's the first to go down as Chovy does have to be respected. Def is able to take him down, though Tarzan falls as well. Sword just says, okay, have fun in the team fight, boys.
Oui,
I'm
avec
gonna win, but no, it's
C'était
Smeb that makes
LNG
it
avec
home.
Doinby,
Now
c'est ça.
KT, they're a man down in the fight, but Chovy should get taken
Non, non,
out.
il y est
It's
encore,
going to
ça
be
y est.
Yukal
Donc pendant
that
la
grabs
RMD.
that kill. This fight continues. Oh, the stopwatch in the little mini video, but
he
it's
end the
not
game?
enough.
I think he
He's looking
can.
to try and get the damage. No one can actually back in
On s'en
time.
va soit qui finit la
Can he
partie.
get there? He's
done.
running as fast as he can, but I don't think he'll make it. He got it! And they save it, but not enough. Lost Sword and Lahen's. Lahen's did eventually die,
C'est beau,
guys.
je chiale.
Stop the minion away from pushing. When do you all in? When do you give your life to delay?
Well, I mean, how much they actually have available to them, because Mata and Score aren't exactly the damage dealers, and look at how quickly these turrets are going down. Banshee's Veil is popped here from Viper, who takes a lot of damage with Smeb. He's going to be here. Is he actually able to do it? Viper goes down, and KT, they may have found their opportunity. Tarzan, can he get this Nexus turret? It's a huge deal, but Def says
Un vrai
no.
weak side.
There's
Ouais,
poise,
ouais.
there's experience, and there's
Gros,
knowing
gros
what
weak
to
side.
do in the ultra late game. You don't scrim for this. And if they kill Chovy, it's guaranteed. And if they waste his time, maybe they win anyway.
That was a face check, and Yukal managed to get
KT
the
have
pick.
done it. KT are going to win.
Just ridiculous. They've got an open Nexus to run out here. Smeb may have actually opened this one up for Griffin, but that is not the case. Heroic Entrance comes in just to break open the base.
Ça avait l'air sympa comme game, ça.
Taken down by Def. The flash forward. The Featherstorm, the inhibitor, going to go down, and Sword thought he was flanking, but he's not. He's getting taken down by Smeb.
C'est du
Trying to play with the
sport.
base gates, but Lahen's once again going to fall.
J'ai-
Viper.
Pour
Can
le
he
coup,
play
il
this
doit y
team
avoir une
fight
rêve
out?
que j'ai pas là.
There's the paranoia. And the GA is once again going to be popped. KT just playing as a unit. And Sword as the GA go down, but
Def
Def is
contre
going to take
Viper,
him
hein.
out in
Ça
the
fait
end.
plaisir aussi à voir.
Inhibitor, the next target is Viper. Full health, but can't find his way in. And KT, they break open the game. Viper now getting taken down to half health. Smebs the Ergon has the disdain, has the ultimate, and the fear beyond death gets rid of both of the carries. And KT are now fighting as if they're on the red side. It's Sword going down so low. Def has so much goddamn damage, and Smeb will deal with Tarzan with the help of Mata. And Griffin just...
Alors, tu feras attention, tu parles de menu fretin, on est sur le patch 8.15, je te laisse te rappeler qu'est-ce qui se passe quelques patchs plus tard. Et dans quel tournoi.
All apart. It's KT Rolster until the end. Yukal tanking the turrets as KT haven't lost a member. The last Nexus turret and the storyline for Score is completed. They're already off their seats. Game 5, Papa Smithy. And Score has done it. Not second anymore. It's first place. And the KT fairy tale is finally alive.
Finally, for the first time since summer of 2014 with the KT Rolster Arrows, KT had won the Korean League. For the first time in his illustrious career, Score was crowned a champion of a tournament, and for once, KT got to prove that they were the best team in Korea.
Ouais,
The
la veste
victory
est
had
cool.
to be short-lived, though, since their win meant that KT had the #1 seed from Korea headed into the World Championship for 2018. At that
On te donne des
World, they
patchs à la
hoped to
Chine.
replicate their
Arrête.
success from the year and would get out of group stage fairly easily, only dropping a single game. This seeded them against Invictus Gaming, the #2 Chinese seed. These two teams were a little unfortunate to face each other at this point in the tournament. They were the best two teams in the tournament, and whoever won this series was likely going to cruise on their way to winning a world championship. Whoever could come out on top in this quarterfinal best of 5. And in true KT fashion, this series would give their fans heart palpitations as it was nail-bitingly close. It started off with Invictus Gaming going up 2-0 early on, but then KT came rolling back, tying the series 2-2. All they needed was one win, and KT would be favorites to win the World Championship. Just one win. But sadly, it is still KT Rolster we're talking about.
Shy's still gonna be soaking. Root comes down. Damage goes through. Jackie's able to find two big kills. Jackie Love just found everybody. And that's gonna be a triple for IG. They're gonna find everyone. It's KT Ace. I'm stunned up, juggled back, seismic shove, right back into line. The KT Rolster, they're able to find a massive fear. Shy's gonna be taken down. Balon's gonna be frontlining now. Shy trying to find the passive damage. Score looks to get himself away, goes into the stasis, keeps himself alive for now, trying to get back.
Voilà, je peux être perdu.
Living now. Seismic shove looking for Jackie Love, can't quite find it. It's Jackie grabbing the kill on his back. It's Jackie looking to find the kill to you. It's Jackie who can't quite get him. And KT on the way. It's gonna be Jackie Love eating some shots from death, but Score looks to get himself away. Nick finds the auto attack and Score is gone. This should be it. Ming's able to grab that kill, and that means the fight continues even further forward. Seeing if maybe they can find something else. It's Lambs or Spike giving Invictus Gaming topped off. They're going to be just fine. Death really gets himself away. Rookie's got the chain. KT Rolster have fallen, and Invictus Gaming will do what has not been done since 2014. They will eliminate the Korean first seed, and they will move on to the semifinals.
En vrai, c'est triste, ça aurait été une très belle finale.
IG would then go on
plus
to
belle
win
que le
Worlds,
IG
leaving
Fnatic, quoi.
KT fans wondering for the millionth time what could have been. It's honestly astounding looking back on their history, just how close KT has come to greatness so many times. So many times where they could have won champions in Korea, so many times where they could have won LCK, so many times where they could have made it to Worlds, and if only they made it one of those years, so many times where they could be the Korean team to win it all. In the National Football League, there's a team called the Buffalo Bills, and ever since the turn of the century, they have been known as one of the worst teams in American football. Most recently, the Bills were known as the team who had an 18-year-long playoff drought, 18 years of playing so poorly they were never able to even make it to a postseason game, much less win a playoff game. They've had a grand total of 3 years with winning records since the turn of the century. They've had 10 different coaches who were hired over those years to try and fix the team. But what they might be most known for is the 1990 to 1993 run where they made 4 consecutive Super Bowls and lost every single one. Most teams who make a high number of Super Bowls have some level of success, which is why they're able to consistently get there so many times.
La violence.
Like the Green Bay Packers, who have made 5 Super Bowls and were
vous
able
arrivez
to
en
win
finale
4
et vous les
of them.
perdez 4 fois
Many
d'affilée.
teams have only ever made
Et
1
le
or 2,
résultat, vous
but they were
atteignez même
still
pas les
able to
playoffs.
snag a win anyway. It's a cruel and unusual punishment for the city of Buffalo to have a team that can make that many Super Bowls and not come away with a single championship, doing it 4 years in a row, no less. Needless to say, they have been the butt end of the joke of football fans for years and years ever since. But then people recognized after a while, holy moly, these were good teams. A team who was able to make 4 consecutive championship games, that's an incredible feat. No NFL team has ever been able to make it to 4 consecutive Super Bowls before or since. The closest any team has ever come is the current Bill Belichick New England Patriots. They've made the past 3 Super Bowls. They'd still have to do it, though, one more time this upcoming year just to tie the Bills' record. It's a pretty funny statement to say that the dominant New England Patriots are now almost as good as the Buffalo Bills. Even with the losses in the championship game, it's an insane accomplishment to be one of the top 2 NFL teams 4 years in a row, and realistically, they were probably the best team in the world plenty of those years. I mean, just because they had one coin flip play or another that didn't fall their way in those games, that doesn't mean that their talent doesn't deserve recognition. And recognition is eventually what they got. 8 of their players from those teams are now in the Hall of Fame. A few of their staff and players would go on to win championships with other teams as well. And the city of Buffalo still loved them incredibly dearly for all those great performances they put on. I would make an argument that KT Rolster are the Buffalo Bills of League of Legends. Throughout their history across multiple games, they have been known for one thing: second place. Whether it be in StarCraft, League of Legends, maybe it's losing to their rivals or wasting the potential of their great rosters, or maybe simply coming up one game short, a game short of an LCK title, a game short of a world championship. KT has just always been synonymous with disappointment. But you know what? Even if they're a team who doesn't have an impressive trophy case, they sure as hell have an impressive resume. To date, KT Rolster has played in 20 total LCK regular seasons, playoff series, and Korean regional finals since they merged sister teams. They finished first overall a total of 3 times, securing second place 8 separate times, and earned the bronze medal on 7 different occasions. That means, of the 20 Korean competitions they entered, KT Rolster finished top 3 in 18 of them. 18 times out of 20, they finished as one of the 3 best teams in the best region in the world. At the time of recording this documentary, KT Rolster are at the bottom of the Korean League. They just looked like one of the worst teams in Korea in this past spring split and have had to play through a relegation series just to even remain in the LCK. They managed to win and are still hanging around, Score still with the team trying as hard as he can to bring them a little more greatness. That may never happen again. KT may just be doomed to disappointment and may one day eventually be relegated, may disband, and disappear. But throughout the eras they competed in, they sure as hell played some beautiful League of Legends.
Cette année, ils ont failli.
Hey, thanks so much for watching my documentary. If you enjoyed it and would like to see
N'hésitez
more,
pas
I have a number of others on my
aller suivre
YouTube
sa
channel
chaîne, il fait
here.
vraiment des
If
beaux
you'd like to
trucs.
see more regular
C'est vraiment stylé ce qu'il fait.